Dale C. Bronner.
Well, if you would turn in your Bibles, 1 Samuel chapter 17, where we're going to finish a message that we began last time entitled Profile of a Champion. Profile of a Champion. 1 Samuel chapter 17, beginning with verse 22, this is what the word reads. And David left his supplies in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. May I just tell you, sometimes if you're going to go forward in your life, you've got to learn how to leave your stuff. Leave your stuff with a keeper of those who are seeking after stuff. If you don't leave from where you are, you can never get to where you're going. You always have to give up in order to go up. It is a principle of life. So David left his supplies in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. And then as he talked with them, there was the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines. And he spoke according to the same words, and so David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. And so the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who's come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And it shall be that the man who kills the king will enrich with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and give his father's house tax exemption from taxes in Israel. And then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered in this manner, saying, so shall it be done for the man who kills him. And now Eliab, the oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Is there not a cause? And then he turned toward another and said the same thing, and these people answered him as the first ones did. And now when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul. And he sent for him, and David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. We're talking about profiles of a champion. Now here in the story, it referred to Goliath as a champion. But I want to look at David as a champion. Championship does not it's not made in the ring when you fight. It only shows up there. There's something that will have been done ahead of time that then shows up in the ring. And you have to thank God one day for your enemies, because they are your enemies that expose the champion in you. Had it not been for Goliath, David never would have been known. There is something that is coming against you that is the greatest challenge of your life. And if you didn't have an enemy, it wouldn't provoke you to produce something in this life that becomes a blessing to the world. You need something to provoke you to do better. The scriptures even teach us, provoke one another unto love and good work. You don't even understand why God will use various things in this life to provoke you to do something. Sometimes somebody has to say something nasty to you that becomes offensive to you, but it stirs up something on the inside of you that says, yes, I can. And who are you to tell me what I can't do and what I can't have? And you have to be provoked sometimes to step into some dimensions of greatness that God has for you. So don't be intimidated by the Goliaths of the world that will try to intimidate you out of your destiny. You have to stand flat-footed and say, who is this uncircumcised Philistine, this unbeliever, this doubter, this person full of fear, who is trying to stop me from stepping into my heritage given by God? Who is this that is trying to halt me from my destiny that I'm born for? Dr. Cole taught me a number of years ago that champions are not those who never fail. Champions are those who never quit. And here's what you have to take under consideration. You must consider that in this life, you lose some and you learn some. You lose some and you learn some. And so everything that you lost in, everything that it appeared that you failed in, there was a lesson in it. You lose some and you learn some. You win some and you learn some. I like to look at it that way. You win some and you learn some. There are really no losers when you look at it from the right perspective. And that's profile number one. Champions have a different perspective. Champions have a different perspective. When you take the perspective of a champion, you realize I'm a winner. I'm a winner. I win some and I learn some. Anybody ever been hooked up with some people and you realize you were a real lesson to me? Now here's my word of admonition to you. Don't retake the class. You ought to be sick of looking at that teacher. You ought to say, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. I don't have time for this anymore. You've been there, done that. I'm not taking any more class. Listen, and don't withdraw. Go ahead and finish it out. Because if you withdraw, you're going to have to take it at another time. We keep quitting people, and you don't learn the lesson. And you have to go back and take that same class again, a different face and a different place, but the same old class. So a champion, remember, champions are not those who never fail, they are those who never quit. You win some and you learn some. You learn some, you learn some, you learn something. You never lose if you learn. Are you listening? You never lose if you learn. If I lost this, but I learned a valuable lesson that will protect me in my future, then what I went through was not in vain. And listen, ladies, some of the guys that mess you up earlier in your life, they prepared you to be able to appreciate somebody who has some sense. If you didn't have those folks to hurt you and abuse you and to do all of that kind of stuff, you wouldn't really realize how good you've got it right now. You win some and you learn some. You win some and you learn some. Some of you have learned the hard way, but thank God that you learn. You win some and you learn some. And listen, the only reason that God will let you learn is so that you will become a teacher to others. You have a responsibility. Champions. I love for people to teach me who have learned some. You win some and you learn some. Even if you don't win the first time, you learn something about this one that helps prepare you to win the next time. And sometimes we have to lose as a part of our schooling so that we learn. We learn. You go to school so that you can learn. You win some and you learn some. You learn some. Champions have a different perspective. Remember, losers look at what they're going through. Champions look at what they're going to. When you look at the mountain and begin to talk about the mountain gets bigger in your consciousness. But when you look at God, you make God big. You make God real big. Big in your mind. Let me just say this to you, that the size of your vision is determined by the size of your perception of God. When you see God as being big in your life, you attempt big things. You go after big things. You dream big dreams because you have a big perception of God. The size of your dream, the size of your vision is an indication of your perception of God. Champions have a different perspective. They can be looking at a giant, but then they'll look at him from the perspective of who is this uncircumcised Philistines. Remember that you have three choices. You can give in, you can give up, or you can give it your all. You give in, you can give up, or you can give it your all. And I want to encourage you, if you're going to be a champion, you've got to be determined, I'm going to give it my all. If I die trying, I'm going to give it my all. I've got to swim or drown, but I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to fly or die, but I'm going to give it my all. Be determined, I'm going to give it this thing all of my. If you're going to fight, you may as well go for blood. You may as well go for broke. Just go for broke. Give it everything. Try it. You know, go down swinging. Go for it. Go for it. As a champion, champions are not those who never fail. They are those who never quit. You win some and you learn some. Remember, how you perceive a person will determine what you will receive from a person. How you perceive will determine what you receive. How you perceive will determine what you receive. I've told you time and time again that there's a king and a fool inside of every man. And whichever one that a woman addresses is the one that will respond to her. And if you're tired of talking to a fool, address the king in them. How you perceive them will determine what you receive from them. You'll be surprised. You will be surprised. Number two, champions have a different courage. Champions have a different courage. They have a different courage. Can you think of anybody who changed the world by trying to fit in? You don't change the world by trying to fit into somebody else's standard, trying to fit in with the good old boy system and meeting the status quo. You have to stand out. Courage is resistance to fear or the mastery of it, but it is not the absence of fear. Courage is saying, I'm running scared, but I'm running anyhow. I'm not letting my fear do it. See, courage is not doing something in the absence of fear, it's doing it right in the presence of fear. When you have courage, it doesn't mean that fear is not present, but it means God is. And it's saying that I am doing this. I'm running scared, but God is with me. I trust that God is with me. I'm scared, but I'm running anyhow because I believe that what God has told me is true. I believe that He is with me to prosper me. I believe that He is my rear guard. I believe that He is with me. I believe that He's ahead of me. I want you to realize today that God is for you. God is with you, and God is in you. God's in you. God is in you. He's in you. He's with you, and God is for you. God is not your enemy. He is not your problem. God is not angry with you. And so I want to encourage you, stop blaming God. I cannot tell you how many people are angry with God because stuff happened to them and they blame God because God could have stopped it from happening and He didn't. And because they don't understand the overall plan of God. Then they're sitting there bitter because life has dealt them lemons. And they're so angry with God over the bitterness of lemons that they've received in their life. They didn't understand what God was trying to do was to put them in the lemonade business. So they didn't wait long enough to get the sugar and the water of His Spirit to come so that He can make lemonade and have them to sell it and make a profit and get you out of your trouble. Don't you dare stop with the lemons. Champions have a different courage. They have a different courage. They have a different courage. This is just review now. Champions have a different perspective. Champions, number two, have a different courage. They have a different courage. They have a different courage. Number three, champions have a different discipline. They have a different discipline in their life. A different discipline. Champions are not made in a day. They are made daily. They are made daily. Paul Bear Bryant said that a champion pays an extra price to be better than anyone else. He pays an extra price to be better than anyone else. They have a different discipline. You know, it's what you do differently that makes you different. You can't just think that you're going to be different and say that you're a champion and then you're doing what everybody else is doing. Champions do things differently. Remember that discipline is not denial, it is delaying. It is delaying your personal gratification because discipline is a sacrifice. You sacrifice the immediate for the ultimate. And remember that self-discipline, say self-discipline. Self-discipline is the ability to do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. Self-discipline, it is the ability to do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. You know that Donald Grant said that to have what we want is riches, but to be able to do without is power. To have what you want is riches, but to be able to do without is power. Touch your neighbor so you're sitting against somebody who's powerful. You know what you will discover when you prove to people that you can do without them, you'll be able to find out how you can get along better with them. To do without is power. To do without is power. There are a whole lot of people that make you think that if they were to walk out of your life that you're going to crawl in a hole and die. Double dog dare them. I'm just going to tell you like this. God is not going to put your destiny in the hands of anybody else. And if anybody has the ability to walk out of your life, it means that they were never critical to your destiny. There are people that God has joined to your life to help you. And those that God has assigned to you, they'll be with you. They will be with you. If somebody walks out of your life and leaves you, they were not critical to the fulfillment of God's plan and destiny for your life. And so there's a power that comes because champions have a different discipline, It is uncommon practice that will produce uncommon results in your life. It's just a little extra put with the ordinary that makes you extraordinary. So don't be afraid of the isolation that comes by being a champion, because when you're going to be a champion, it produces isolation in your life. Lorraine Hansberry said it well when she said that the thing that makes you exceptional, if you are at all, is inevitably that which must also make you lonely. Because when you're taking care of your business, other folks want to be inviting you to social functions. They want to invite you to the mall, to go out shopping, to go see this movie, to go out and do window shopping and all of these kinds of stuff. But when you got stuff, your self-discipline says, I got to do what I should do, when I should do it, whether I feel like it or not. And you will discover that the more sweat that is lost in practice, the less blood lost in battle. Because I'm a champion, and champions have a different discipline in their life. The Bible says in Job chapter 8 and verse 7 that though thy beginning was small, yet thy latter end should greatly increase. Don't you ever think that you can determine the wealth of something, the worth of something, because it looks small in the beginning. Everything great looks small in the beginning. Everything great looks small in the beginning. He says though your beginning was small, yet your latter end should greatly increase. God has said, listen, you don't have any idea of what I'm getting ready to do in your life. You see the seed of it. God operates everything that he operates in his kingdom on a seed principle. It might be small now, but plant it. You dig it and plant it and watch it grow. You water it and God will give the increase, and your latter end should be greater. Despise not the day of small beginnings. Don't get angry because God gives you seed. God gives seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So don't ever despise the day of small beginnings. Here's number 4. Champions have a different wisdom. Champions have a different wisdom. You don't have to fool all of the people all the time, Gerald Barzan said. You just have to fool enough to get elected. Josh Billings said that the best way to convince a fool that he is wrong is to let him have his own way. You know, there's some folks that you just can't even tell anything to. You just got to let them go and run their head against the wall and fall off the cliff, do whatever. There's some folks, you know, you try to tell them, but you know, there's certain folks that you just have to just let them have their own way to show them you were wrong. A fool always finds a greater fool to admire him. You'd be surprised. I'm amazed at how gullible some people are. Here's something that my oldest brother said. Thought it was worth repeating, but he said, it is not our circumstance that makes the most difference in life. It's our choices in our circumstances. It's not our circumstances. It's not how you were born that matters, because you determine the way you die. It's not our circumstance that makes the most difference in life. It's our choices in our circumstances. It's our choices in our circumstances. C.S. Lewis said that the next best thing to being wise yourself is to live in a circle of those who are. Champions have a different wisdom. Champions have a different wisdom. They have a different wisdom. Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 20 says, he that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. He didn't even say that you had to have wisdom to walk with wise people. But you've got to at least have enough sense to walk with somebody who's got some sense. And the promise is that if you'll walk with somebody who's got some sense, keep your mouth closed, because you've got one mouth and 2 ears and 2 eyes, so you can do twice as much looking and twice as much listening as you do speaking, and get around somebody wise, soak it in, and learn. He that walks with wise men, she that walks with wise folks shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. The only reason that people choose to be a companion of fools because you're going to have a good time. You will have a good time. There's no question about it. You will have a good time. David was wise enough not to fight Goliath with untested weapons, because champions have a different wisdom. He wouldn't fight Goliath with Saul's weaponry. Saul took all of his armor, his big heavy sword, his big heavy helmet, and all of that, and gave it to David. And David said, you know, he was operating with a different wisdom. David says, listen, I know how to operate my slingshot with some rocks, but I don't know anything about all the heavy stuff. I can't operate. I've never tested that. You don't go to war with untested weapons. That's why he decided to use his sling and his rocks and not a sword. He had to use that he was already comfortable in operating. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Anytime that people are telling you that there's only one way to do it, they are micromanagers who are narrow-minded in their own scope. There's more than one way to get the job done. There's more than one way to get the job done. And so you have to do that which is comfortable for you. Somebody's presenting to you a sophisticated cake plan, but you got a cornbread plan. Go ahead and rock it with your cornbread plan. You don't have all of their sophisticated money in the budget to be able to do everything that they're doing, but you started with what you've got. Use what you've got to get what you want. You got to have some old mother wit. My God, we got a lot of smart folks in the world, but not many wise. A lot of educated folks, but not many wise. A lot of people with degrees, but not many wise. I've never seen so many ignorant folks with master's degrees. We don't just need smart folks, we need wise folks. Folks that got sense enough to come in out of the rain. Folks that know how to pour water out of a boot. Somebody that knows how to put their own hat on for themselves. Strap your own boots on for yourself. We need somebody that's got some sense, that ought to look at some situation and say, listen, I don't have but $10, and you're trying to get me to buy something for $9.95 that I don't even need, telling me that it's on sale because it was $19.95, but I don't even need it. I wasn't born yesterday. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. Champions have a different wisdom. They do. Can I give you a word of wisdom? Half of the troubles of this life can be traced to people saying yes too quickly and no not soon enough. It's when you say yes too quickly and no not soon enough. Sometimes when you really want wisdom, I'm a seeker after wisdom and truth. And I cannot tell you sometimes how I will just sit out in nature, because the heavens, the earth, they declare the glory of God. And sometimes God, what he created in his omniscience and wisdom and power, they speak to me. God teaches us wisdom through nature. The mountains teach us stability. I look at the mountains. God's like a rock. Stone Mountain was there yesterday, is there today. It'll probably be there tomorrow. Stability. Stability. Mountains teach us stability. When I look at a mountain, it looks like something solid, like Prudential, a piece of the rock, because it says stability, stability, stability. The sun and the moon, they teach us faithfulness. The Bible says as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, summer and winter, the sun and the moon, they come up faithfully on their schedule. They come up, they are faithfully there every day. There's not been one day when the sun has refused to rise. It teaches me the faithfulness of God. The moon coming, faithfulness of God. Whether I can see it or not behind the clouds, I know that it is there. It is the faithfulness in the sun and the moon that teach me faithfulness. The sea, the ocean. The seas, they demonstrate our capacity to change. An ebb and flow. An ebb and flow. When I look at the ocean coming in and going out, that's when stuff seems like it's just crowding in on you and drowning you. It is only for a season. It will wash back out. It lets me know that this trouble didn't come to last. It only came to pass. And every time that I'm looking at the seascape, it lets me know that I have the ability to be able to change and to adapt. And the lines are constantly changing. And that's why I've got to trust him in the midst of the change. And the tiny ant that I observed teaches me teamwork. They teach me dedication. They teach me thrift. They teach me wisdom that will store up in a time of plenty for a time of scarcity. I just learned that wisdom just from observing the ant. Go ye sluggard, and consider the ways of the ant and be wise. Because champions have a different wisdom. Young people may know the rules, but mature people know the exceptions to the rules. It's different that champions operate with a different wisdom. It is wisdom to understand that the pursuit of happiness is the wrong goal. There's so many people just chasing after happiness. Oh, if I could only be happy. The end of pursuit of happiness, pursuit of happiness. Listen to me. Happiness always depends on what's happening. And when the happenings are not happening, then you're not happy. I don't have time to be on a seesaw about whether it's happening or not happening. I'm not going to be on an emotional roller coaster. You're looking at a man right now who has never been depressed a day in his life, because I'm not dealing with happiness based on what happens in my life or not. The pursuit of happiness is the wrong goal. You don't become happy by pursuing happiness. You become happy by living the life that you were meant to live, a life that means something. Hell is the loneliness of having everything and knowing that it is still not enough. The same little new house that made you happy at one time will have you cussing in it the next moment. The same new car that had you happy for 2 weeks will have you cussing when you get your bill. Your happiness is based on what you become and the meaning that flows out of your life. May I just say this to you, that no man, no woman chooses evil because it is evil. They only mistake it for happiness. They thought that it would make them happy. They thought that if they could get this good-looking man, that he would make them happy. And it becomes the beginning of sorrows.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop.